Getting supernatural up in here. Walking through those dangerous astral neighborhoods with a flaming sword that will strike down any lower spirit in my path. Alex Answer here. It is January 12th in the year 2019. Coming to you from southern Colorado, the mountaintop, where no one will hear you scream. In fact, maybe you'll hear the screams of others. And sometimes those screams aren't physical. Sometimes it's just in the ether. Sometimes it's just in the realms of the unseen. We are living on top, of course, on top of an ancient world, and that includes wherever you are on the planet, you are affected by the past actions of the forms of life, from human to non-human, that at one point in time, at least at one point in time, walked the earth before this type of a construct. And this type of a construct that you and I are living in as human beings today, right? And I do that for a reason. Because the greater question is, what is our true form? What is our true size? What is our true name? We compare the reality of what is true feminine love. What is true masculine protection? What is the highest good or the highest purpose? What is the highest wisdom? We live in this fallen world where there are many false truths that masquerade as establishment consensus realities. And consensus realities that are supported by the norms are not necessarily the most evolved. In many cases, we can see consensus realities on certain levels be the detriment and literally be the thing that collapses a society when their consensus reality aligns to the dark side. If only that consensus reality and that collectivism would go in a lighter direction. And we've been told for many years, hey, there's no point in talking about certain things because by osmosis in 2012, people are just naturally going to shift their consciousness and everything will be okay. And everything will be okay, because that's what people forget when they label, right, the people that looked at 2012 as fear-mongering doomsday soothsayers. Oh, they're forgetting, though, the other perspectives on 2012 where people are running around going, it's 2012, it's 2012. Just like that YouTube video, check it out. Shit New Age girls say, also the spinoff, shit New Age guys say. And you guys wonder why I left Portland, or maybe you don't. But I was literally inundated for a while with elements of the female population in the psychosis of the 2012 saviorship time period. I was also exposed as a younger child to versions of that in and around the year 2000. Those of you that are a little older may also remember the harmonic convergence period of 1987. Now, it's actually a specialty of mine, I do talk about solar cycles on this channel. Absolutely. The highs and the lows and the different energies that it brings, even psychic doorways opening for some of us when that level of our perception is expanded. We can also see others when they're not grounded spiritually go in a direction of madness. So there's a purpose in being grounded during those high energy periods in which we are bombarded with an increase in solar activity. And I see things like that as the primary conduits. There may be other things that are going on behind the scenes with regards to the shifts from 1987 to 88 or the 80s to the 90s. But if you look at the periods in which we went from the minimum to the maximum, you'll find, right, those shifts, again, going from the 80s to the 90s, that's going from a minimum into a solar maximum. What did we see in the solar maximum of 1990, 1991? We saw Desert Storm. We saw also the very wild, colorful exercise pants, as well as the resurgence or the rise of jazzercise. The reason I even bring up those things in addition to conflicts, fads, thought forms, memes, there's a way that humans bring life to certain thought forms and movements, whether it be based in like fiction, pop culture, a straight up protest, or a war, or a breakthrough in sexual freedom, or a breakthrough in the sciences. So those of you that are not new viewers know that I don't blame the sun. Instead, I see the sun as a conduit. And so those things that are there, right, are going to rise to the surface, and there could be other things that interplay with that. This is a level of knowledge that a lot of people don't incorporate into their religions and even their New Age beliefs. How do I distinguish between New Age and traditional spiritual teachings that have been here for thousands of years? That Orthodox people will also call New Age, which is not the right thing to do. It's actually disrespectful. I want to say that, they're going to look at what the church chose to pick from the teachings of Jesus while at the same time rejecting the rest of the world's spiritual knowledge. Yeah, that's a great way to get my attention. And I'm being sarcastic and facetious. It's not. It's not. I mean, there are certain like ways and schools of thought, pathways of thought, which are absolutely closed-minded and lead literally to dead ends, where there isn't like a wider perspective on the nature of spirit. And I've come across a lot of people that act as if they come in the name of Christ by putting themselves under the label of Christian, but as far as that Christ consciousness frequency and truly having a loving heart, I rarely come across that. And I've actually gone into several local churches thirsty for that sense of connection and community, only to find myself disappointed. But in that disappointment that I felt, by the way, with regards to that and other things, there's also the freedom. What do you mean, Alex? What do you mean, Alex, you find freedom and almost a sense of micro-enlightenment in the pain? I'm going to touch upon that today. I mean, even yesterday, I was kind of discussing how I felt a sense of pain. I didn't really elaborate on the feeling pain part, but kind of picking up on someone's fear in another city. And that is another city in which, over the course of the last year, I have tried to make some contacts based on a perception, hey, it's more urbanized. Maybe they're a little bit more civilized in this world of fake news, in this left-right divide. I'm not a fan of the leftists, but maybe in some of these towns in which, there's less Trump support and stickers, maybe they're more open-minded. The thing is, I learned some things about Portland. It's not so much about the president, whether someone's for or against. It's whether those people are generally tapped into spirit or whether they're a part of the mold, their environment. And the dark tone of the environments run deeper, and it connects with the old world. It has less to do with politics of the modern day and age. More so the politics of the modern day and age and how they script things and they select their fronts for their new world order. They play on the old world. They play on human psychology. They craft who's going to be running and what's going on with all that, Hillary, Trump, what's coming up next in 2020, based on what's already going on with human consciousness. They are the social engineers. These are not genuine elections. Don't need to keep repeating myself, but I'm watching like a minute or two, like here or there, of what's going on in Washington, D.C. with the shutdown. And I believe it's a script, it's a show. And they have it controlled on both the left and the right, and the leadership of both the Democrats and Republicans. Republicans were looking at Donald Trump or the President of the United States. So there's a back and forth going on, and the main purpose of it is to divide the people. And it's also to bankrupt this nation as the military-industrial complex has a blank check. Let's reel this back, though, to why even if you go somewhere where it's not adamantly pro-Trump, and you could even label it multicultural or leftist, although I don't think that's a fair label, just because something's not straight right-wing or on the right doesn't mean that all of us that are independents and aren't political are thus then thrust in this category of left. That's bullshit. That's become, though, the new religion for a lot of people on the right today. And that's wacky. That's as wacky as saying all white people are the devil, because that's not true. There could be some people that are in our midst that are trying to act as if they are devil, archon, archetypes, but that's their problem. They don't need to necessarily take down your reputation and your ethnicity because of their devilish behavior. See, I have the adult maturity, though, to treat people with a certain level of respect, even if I don't feel that level of respect back. What I feel back, and nothing's going to stop me from speaking this truth, because I know in my heart future generations, as well as elements of the present, will appreciate the insight. It isn't about who somebody voted for. If we're going to be asking a question, are they programmed into the deep, deep illusions of separation? Or go into certain areas, like I said, where there's racial strife because of history? Maybe there are some people where they feel a sense of guilt because they moved to a certain area, and maybe they don't need to feel that guilt for being a human. But what they probably shouldn't be doing automatically is just being afraid of people. You know what I mean? When they're walking down the street and they're going, oh, that guy looks Hispanic. Oh, that guy looks Native. Oh, boy. Yeah, maybe they're angry because we're here. And there's that type of a very strong charge that I feel from some of those women. I've, throughout my whole life, by the way, I've heard this term called short man syndrome. And as a shorter man, I feel like there isn't really a lot of dialogue that has been based around explaining tall man syndrome. And that does exist, and that's in a way much stronger than this small, even like the whole box of creating small man syndrome is degrading and dehumanizing in and of itself. Tall man syndrome are the people that feel like they have more value because they can tower over you, or literally cut in front of you in line and act like you're not there. There's times in which people have done that, and I've never made a video about it because, you know, it's not really something that it takes away from the main content on this channel. And there's tons of things that have happened that I've never talked to you about. There's things in which maybe I've mentioned some bad things that have happened, and I chose to just keep moving forward and tell myself, well, the idea is that I remember what happened during these periods, the challenges I went through, but for the purpose of looking back on it in the years ahead and having kind of like a fist in the air of victory. And there's a number of different things in which I measure success. And it's very different. Me and my experience and my whole makeup and even the things that I'm focused on, there's no other human being that compares to me. And that's the truth. We're all that different. Just like our fingerprint. My fingerprint, yeah, let's see if someone could do a screenshot of that and bring that up in the database. Good luck. I don't know how good the resolution is. There you go. Dude. People used to make fun of me quite a bit about my thumbs when I was a kid. A little less when I'm an adult, right? But early on, people were screaming at me, children, in their own tongue, how different I was. And they were focusing just on that. It would be many, many years until 911. It would be many, many, many years until Facebook and the social media manipulation that divided us. But I came into a world that was fallen, okay? And so this fallen world isn't going to be correcting itself anytime soon. Understanding that, let's bring this to center, brings a sense of peace and release instead of angst by accepting the what is. And when we identify with something more spiritual beyond the ego and instantaneous gratification, we can get away from those lower emotions and mindsets of fear, anger, lust, elements of the ego, and other things, and identify with that luminous ball of energy that is within our body that is just merely renting space at this time, and identifying with that. The luminous energy within that connects to source, and not forgetting that. And some people don't really believe that. And then some people do tap into the energies and the law of attraction. They're trying to bring themselves money and partners. And I desire those things as well. I desire those things. I'd love to take a month off, right? With a great lover and be on a beach and then be traveling around and even have a few drinks, visit a few nightclubs, right? Experience elements of my youth and health and things of that nature, right? That's still based in the lower world of desire. You know, there's a reason in 2019 this year that I want to bring different spiritual teachings from different continents. And it's this year in which I'm going to be the comparative religion critic that's coming from the Orthodox religion viewpoint. I'm going to be their worst nightmare. It's like that scene from Rambo 3, which is free, by the way, on Vudu. I recommend as your teacher that you watch Rambo 3 at vudu.com. Do it now or later. And let's come back and talk about Rambo 3, being that you can watch Rambo 3 for free and understand how hypocritical it is for them to act like they care about the plight of the Afghan people. And then to literally do much worse than what they portrayed the Russians doing to the Afghans. You know, the Russians were there for 10 years. And the Russians did some bad stuff, but eventually they left. And what you have in the current situation, not to mention that they have been blamed for 9/11, the people of Afghanistan, which is a farce. But a lot of people that don't know their history and almost seem to have like a natural inclination to hate. I believe the 9/11 event was just simply awakening dormant DNA. Not to confuse this with racism, but to go back to things that I talked about earlier, that I believe there is a embedded implant into our DNA. This has to do with how we were created in the fallen world. So we were created to be super lustful and super warlike. And the super warlike programming within the ancestral DNA has imprinted programming to be at war with people from certain places on the planet. It's more than just ancestral memory from old Europe. That's so limited, something I said earlier, but more so a deeper history. In a podcast in which a Muslim is talking about racial supremacy, unfortunately within even their religion and how it goes contrary to their religion, there were some other things that were shared. I'm trying to remember something, but he was talking about the jinn. And you've heard me compare them to the archons, so of others. And he talked about racism beginning with them. And it was just so surreal to hear this podcast and to hear this man who's a scholar, and I'm not religious, but yet there's a parallel truth that we're tapping into. Here's what he said about the jinn introducing racism, but toward the race of humans. Now, you can go deeper into types of humans within humans, humans being racist against humans, but really starting at a higher level, racism towards humans as a whole. And the jinn saying to the Almighty, or that which is believed in the Quran, although I'm open to other perspectives. Those of you know that I've read a lot of Gnostic texts, which have a very different view on the Creator as opposed to the Abrahamic religions. Those of you know that watch this channel, how much time I've given to the Gnostic worldview of the Creator as opposed to the Abrahamic religions. But are there clues in some Abrahamic religions that we may be able to glean, as well as sacred geometry and other things in which there may be some things that were retained by the authors of these religions, because obviously humans had to put it into book format. And even if they say it's pure, I believe the Muslims say that, I don't believe that. I believe there's always been tampering with all the spiritual religious books. Some of it could be on a positive sense. Some of it could be tampering from the empires. They're actually enslaving people, which is always wrong, even if they do it in the name of God. Yeah, not the true God. So if someone's going to say, oh, I believe in God. Yeah, there's always spiritual things in this book. Yeah, now come under our command. Then you're not coming in the name of God. You're just grabbing a book and doing a sigil thing. Nice sigil magic, but it's not going to work on Alex Ansary. But the lower intelligent, low-level soul voltage souls don't realize these levels of deceptions that take place in our world. So they can easily be duped into hate of an entire religion or a people based on things that are manufactured by the hidden hand that they don't even know exist. But let's reel it back to the story about the jinn saying to the Almighty, I'm not going to serve these humans or help these humans. Look at them. You made them from clay. You made me from smokeless fire. I'm going to do my own thing. We're going to do our own thing. And plus you have, I guess, because we're going to talk about this later in 2019, there's a particular article that does an analysis of all that is said about the jinn in the Quran, and it has it all in this super long article that keeps it super easy and simple, having necessarily go straight to the book, but it referencing their book and what is said. So the jinn coming from a smokeless fire, and a parallel in the archons, as some believe. Some believe there's a parallel in the creation story of the archons in the Nag Hammadi, coming from the demiurge, and the jinn also having a special class of super dark ones working for Shaitan. Whereas there can be maybe other jinns that are less evil and capable of doing good. So it's believed that these spirits in their world can do good or evil. They can serve God or they can serve the jinn Shaitan class. So it's kind of interesting. That's kind of like what I want to bring up. Because so when I talk about supremacy movements being part of an alien agenda, when I talk about the real alien invasion being the invasion of human consciousness, when I talk about the obsessions today that weren't as strong years ago, that are online, that are demonizing people of various ethnicities. How do people that are only going to be alive for a few decades going to benefit from what the world looks like in 100 years or 200 years? It's not them, but they act as if they're tied to it. No, they're going to be gone beyond a certain point, and there is literally going to be, depend on their actions here in this world, that determines what follows, where they go down into the underworlds or they go up into the higher realms. And I want to bring back Bill Gorman and the rocks. Those could be carvings. It could be petrified giants. Again, the third option, nature spirits. What if the underworld is, what if there's almost a literal component to hell? Judas Priest, screaming for vengeance. Dun, 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 dun. Now, I think there's a reason why rock music, some of those themes, and by the way, that was some clips from Judas Priest in that Masters of the Universe mashup clip from the movie clips, Archetype of the Hero. Some of that stuff included heavy metal from 1980. Some of it included a Nostradamus War by Judas Priest, where it seems to almost be a mix of Norse mythology as well as the Gnostic tale of the captive goddess and the rescuing of the goddess. Again, Masters of Universe, He-Man rescuing the goddess from Skeletor, the Archon. So the truth is in plain sight. And remember, as the truth is in plain sight, those that are actually on the dark side, those that would capture the goddess, those that would divide the races, those that really are infected by the Jinn Archon spirits, they right now are trying to invade the alternative media, and in a way already have. Demons have invaded the alternative media. So there are people that literally are slaves to illusions of separation, waiting for the return of the king, instead of just bringing up their own and in their own spirit, pulling the sword from the stone and using that flaming sword to take on the demons of this world. Instead, it's been inverted 180. It's like a cross turned upside down. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. It's the inversion of truth in an Archon gangster's paradise. Na 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 na, in an Archon gangster's paradise. And in an Archon gangster's paradise, and I've seen this, people on the dark side that do shitty things, humans that do shitty things to other humans that are good, they somehow are rewarded monetarily. I've witnessed this by this world. And once you see this again and again and again, and once you read enough stories about the Buddhas that came before us, we're going to get into Buddhist teachings as well. Again, unsubscribe if you're stuck in these dogmatic, Abrahamic, or atheistic worldviews. We're going to be covering over 13. Alex said 13. I'm scared. We're going to be covering over 13, over 14, over 15 various spiritual teachings from around the world, including old Ansari from the 10th century of Herat. We'll also cover the Hermetic teachings. We'll also cover elements of Hindu mythology. We'll also cover elements of Mayan cosmology. Right? We will not be covering the Da Vinci Code. We will not be reading Dan Brown. We will not be even reading Sylvia Brown. Like, there's none of that cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And you'll notice, like, all of these are old school texts from the old school. None of this is Scientology. None of this is Edgar Cayce. None of this is channeled messages from the 1970s and 1980s. Only one. There would be only one. There would be only one man featured on my channel giving his prophecy of what he's seen, and that's featured, as you know already, on the front page of youtube.com/AlexAnswery. And even if you've already seen it, right, there's a point in other people seeing that, even those that would be my critics in the future. I would think that I'm something else other than what I am. You can't show me one person on the so-called box of the left, anywhere, or Antifa, that has a history of warning the United States about an imminent war with China or Russia that goes back 10 years. You can't. You can't. You can't. You can't show me another one also that can do something not into politics, that talks about the trends of the solar cycles and the wars. That's right. The wars. 2025. You can't. You can't. You can't even find, even in some of the decent reporting on Amy Goodman's Democracy Now!, which I don't watch, by the way, you can't even find her doing a program on solar flares. You can't even find her doing a program on all these things. Well, you know, if you really look at it, if what I say is coming, women's rights are going to take a major, major nosedive under occupation. So have the official, let's just be blunt, white feminists, right, and white male conservative Christians, have they raised the alarms at the degree that I have about threats coming to your people? Because always reground and center it on this question of questions. And that's the thing. What's happened to Afghanistan has happened, and I can't stop that. But you know what? I can't stop what's coming to this continent, but I can surely talk about it before it happens. I can surely talk about what I feel within before it happens. And I can go deeper into that truth over the years. I can talk about things like karma. I can introduce ideas to you. I can introduce ideas to you that I believe are absolute truths. And I'm doing this. I'm motivated to try to evolve my soul beyond this world. It's not money. It's not for a wife. Now, I will welcome certain things into my world, including travel and other jobs. But I realize that half my life is done. And I realize that we are trapped into this world through the illusion of not only separation, but the illusion of life within the timelines. We think about, oh, living forever or extending our life or being afraid of death. We're enslaved through the fear of death. But we've got to burst through that. I'm waking up even deeper into my own reality every day, that I'm a powerful soul that was thrust into these combination of genetics. It's not an accident. I know what I know. It's not an accident. The universal forces have given me just enough, and not much more, to do what I'm doing and come to you right now with what little gas is left in the generator. I'm planning on going to town, the closest town to me, in a few hours. And let me talk about that, because I'm going to try to meditate by the river for a little bit and quiet my mind and tap into that gratitude frequency more than what I normally do. You see, because we can experience things that are painful that wake us up. And I mentioned that recently. Well, you know, that pain of how that woman crossed the street and just kind of feeling what that was about, and other things that have happened that you don't know about. You don't know about that one situation, although the VHX members know. So if you're a VHX member, you saw the video. There's a woman that confronted me for filming, and all I'm doing is speaking outside a bank. And she's freaking out because I'm filming. That's like, if you really think I'm a threat, why are you getting up in my grill? Why are you getting up like within a few feet? They're going to act like, you know, they're freaked out that people are casing the joint. Oh, we have people casing the joint. Right? I talked to the regional manager. See, and it was, I guess, synchronicity. God must have been watching over him and his business, or at least maybe some archetype thought forms or other entities, because he ended up seeing what she was doing and kind of intervened, because she was acting, in my opinion, in a very, she profiled me. And this media will care if a black person's profiled so they can amp up race war shit. But I'm telling you, I've been profiled for crazy shit. But I realize this world's become so snowflake-ish that it's become less receptive to hearing about what real things are happening to real people like me in the grassroots, in the real world. And there's some areas in which I'm the only person like me, and I can be distinguished from Hispanics, African Americans, and Native Americans. And it is a day and age where more people can pinpoint my Middle Eastern heritage more easily than in the past because of all the fear-mongering things. And it's especially so if it's a period where I don't shave. And it's just the way that it is. And some people in America, they really don't like Hispanics because of things taking place. And so you got to admit there's got to be a little bit of gray area. How can someone know whether someone's an illegal alien or illegal? All they would be able to tell is if they're less white, maybe could be Hispanic, maybe could be Middle Eastern. And so when you look at this rhetoric, even if you're for safety and you're nothing wrong with you wanting to be safe and your communities, hell, I want you to be safe too. And people that are hearing my message. That's why I talk about the geopolitical stuff. That's why this isn't like a program like The Advice Show or others, to where we're just constantly focusing on just one group of people being mean to another group of people. No, there's plenty of things that black speakers on YouTube should be talking about other than just blame whites. Under anti-Themism, as you've heard me talk about, you have a coalition of blacks, Native Americans, Hispanics, and whites that are stomping on the face of the Middle East. Do you like that? Forever. And out of those people that do support my work, they're not Muslims. If you are a Muslim and you're one of the few, and some people have emailed me in the past, and it's rare, I do recognize you. But I want to let my audience know, right, that this isn't something that is custom tailored perceivably in the eyes of some for those people. It's not for those people and against those people. This is a video series that started in 2004. And again, I've said before, there could be karmic consequences that I've had to face for things that I may have done. I may be in this body experiencing certain things to know what it's like, period. And I can reevaluate my life or in my thinking, have I in some way, right, allowed the programming of this very system that I am critical of to infect me from a prejudice or a stereotypical behavior. Now, stereotypes aren't always negative. For example, think of that old Chinese or Asian people are like kung fu masters or karate masters, like Bruce Lee or someone in Japan. That's a stereotype. And so stereotypes can be positive or negative, and the media can teach us stereotypes. And I've never seen a positive stereotype about my own father's ethnicity. One would literally have to be in another culture and be exposed to, or on the East Indian side of me, because there's multiple parts from various parts of the world that have come in, created the fusion that created this, right? This human, this spirit inside this body that is accessing various elements of DNA. And I feel like it connects me with various spiritual teachings that go back thousands of years. I don't feel like a strong bond only to the East because of the limited knowledge that I have about on the Welsh and the other bloodlines within. There are older, like very Tolkien-ish, and I can hear the cat outside just a little bit, or maybe I should get the cat now. I should get the cat now because it's cold. And I really felt that earlier when looking at the rocks. You know, and there's elements of Norse mythology which seems oddly familiar to me. Some of that material. Some of it's a little bit scary. And that's why I kind of like look at that, like it, you know, you want to almost touch that with ooh. So you got a hot mantle or a hot little poker, right? And it's already hot at the end. You want to have some sort of like, you know, an oven pad for the hand as you grab that hot poker and move around those logs in that fire. Because we're dealing with fire. We're dealing with fiery spirits, right? We're dealing with spirits and thought forms and entities that use some of these belief systems to control others. And I'm segueing this free flow. And so I can see like the higher and lower sides of a lot of these religions and belief systems, how they can be channeled or used for good and for evil. It's not just one thing. In this world, there are choices. For some reason, we do have to contend with people coming around saying that we don't have free will. There's always an alarm bell that goes off within me when I hear people say that we don't really have free will in this world. Heard Laura Eisenhower say that once. When I actually got a chance to meet Laura Eisenhower in person, I felt her fear, which didn't feel any different than the fear that I felt from a lot of, and definitely with the sunglasses on, not attacking her, but that was liberating as well. Because from 2012 to 2013, right, when I came across Laura Eisenhower, in my mind, it's like, yes, more evidence. There are women waking up that are speaking their truth. This is so awesome. And then you learn what reality is like. You learn what relationships or handler type of men they may get into a relationship with. I think with her, it was Dr. Dream. If you're not really familiar with what I'm talking about, watch Dr. Dream's presentation with Laura in 2013 at Mark Passio's Free Your Mind conference. He appeared in that video as he appeared to be me, more of a control freak handler type of a male than a higher consciousness male that's truly like evolved and not just doing like gong, leading Om sessions. And I've seen so many people like him in Portland that I can see them coming a mile away. But it is going to be exciting. And the women understand that I'm not very impressed with male psychology and behavior either. So it's a fallen world, and it's expressing itself in our current social dark ages now. Intuition has taken a nosedive, and people are going into robotic, smartphone, algorithm, AI mode. While thinking that they're free. While thinking that they're evolving, right? Some people are just locked into doomsday, like prepare, like, you know, some sort of apocalypse mode without like showing like genuine concern for the apocalypse realities or the end times realities that people overseas are living every day under bombardment. If someone truly like feels a sense of compassion for the whole world, but they can come across people that are only concerned with themselves and literally down to a T, their own crops. That's something that can wake someone up just like a spiritual text. There's things that I'm experiencing and people that I've met. It's like there's not an accident why I've met people that are at such a fallen state that falsely think that they're woke. There's not a reason why in this life I am bearing witness to so much inversion of truth. So many false versions of community. Such a lack of community amongst even what we have here. And this is the best example of it. And by the way, I do want to, let me show you what I found for $3 at the thrift store. Like I said, you know, a dog could be freaked out by a human that has a powerful totem spirit. But the human owner of that pet, the very fact they would see themselves as an owner, gives them away enough that they're tapped into the illusions of separation and not true consciousness. My cat, by the way, has the freedom to take off whenever it wants. If it wanted that, I had a hard time like with the idea of being a owner, even them having a microchip. But that's just how it is. That's just how it is. But there could be things that pop out at us at once that get our attention. And it could be a series of books. It could be a series of messages. It could be a series of clues. We can be in, you know, a store somewhere and be like, you know, I'm going to find a book about the sun. There's a book about the sun here. Is there a book about the sun here? Boom. And it pops up. I was at another bookstore a year ago, and I got the same thing going on because like I'm seeing how amazing this guy's, it's like one of the most amazing bookstores in the region. So many books on spirituality, some books on martial arts, some books on travel, some books on the Native Americans, some books on prehistory, like all these different topics that I'm interested in and more. It also has a fiction section. There were so many things that were in that one bookstore that impressed me more than other bookstores. And I shouldn't censor myself, right, from telling the full experience. But I tried to engage in some small talk, even asked if they were interested in hiring. And the type of energy block that whoever was working there threw out was so strong. Even when I was looking through the books, I knew what I was feeling from him telepathically. It was, why are you taking so long to pick out a book? Pick out a book and leave. And sometimes we can hear the sign from people. Needless sign. Just kind of an aura of, I don't trust you. That's like a lot of people don't in our society have that type of self-restraint. Just type of to meditate. A lot of people don't meditate. A lot of people could surround themselves with spiritual books, sigils, symbols, even giant Buddha statues. Giant Buddha statues. Yeah. Yeah, make you look real enlightened sitting next to the lotus flower. By the way, there's a new far-right group that is adopting a secret Nazi symbol. It is a blue flower. And when I read that last night about the blue flower, it reminded me of Himmler and his trips to Tibet, and also his study of the Hindu mythologies of lighter-skinned aliens enslaving the darker-skinned humans on the earth that were created by aliens. There were mythologies that even Nazi Germany was tapping into. The blue flower sounds like the lotus. And even Vishnu, one of the supreme Hindu deities, carries a lotus. See? From swastika to the flower to other symbols. It's not the symbols are evil, or the origins, or even some of these deities. It's that you have evil deities that will take some of these things, move things around, invert it, and then present it to the public. And then the public's being told, no, this is good. This is for your people. Enter Lord of the Rings soundtrack. Barbarians, darkskins coming over the world. Dun, 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 dun. A lot of people start feeling that, Norse mythology, Gods of War video game. They're getting that euphoric. Oh, yeah, us versus them. Because, yes, I think there's something built into your biology that can have a sense of orgasm or getting off through the us versus them competition. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Totally. Hmm? And I think that's what's happening now. People are so into body consciousness. See, that's why, like it's mindless to spend all day long, in my opinion, on a football field, which is why, like early, way before 9/11, people were alienated from me and me from them over the team sport thing. This is way before me waking up to the Matrix element. This was like pre-Alex Awakening, not being into hip-hop, not being into football, not being into basketball, not being into grunge. Add in a few more. I wasn't into cliques. So I got a lot of early experience being the kid that wasn't even hanging out with the nerd table. I literally was a man of an oven or a boy as a young child, being all by himself. Too weird for even the nerds. There's a reason why I've always been different. Cast out of every single group. Right? I think I have family members on my father's side that even secretly watch my channel. Now think about that. No, don't run off to us. No, we're not going back to Trump. If my own bloodline on daddy's side isn't vibing with Alex is saying. Now think about that. Now think about that. And think about that again. And don't act like, I know most of you don't, but when I see the programming from the mainstream media, when I see the programming from InfoWars, when I see the programming from the white nationalists, they talk about various minorities and Middle Easterns like we're part of a group or something, without even realizing that there are some of us that if you're born a certain combination, their world will also throw us out. The idea of purity of bloodline doesn't seem to be limited to white supremacy or Europeans. I believe my father's family threw the illusions of separation at me as well. And I learned what that was way before the events of 9/11. Do you understand now? Are you caught up to speed? Somehow the universe dictated that by the age of 14 and 15, I would be having traumatic experiences with my father. And I would see him as a devil archetype. And it would be in the way that he would not appreciate the good things within me and how he's in control freak mode. And he absorbs some of the negative elements of this culture. It wasn't about me being a Muslim. It was about me going into higher education and getting into computers, just so you know. you know, what your society and this culture would consider that which makes the big money to have the suburban. So in a way, the pressures of my father, which were psychotic, match those of well, maybe some of you. Wasn't about religion, believe it or not. It was about, you're worthless, son. My brother has females that are doing way better than you. They're women. They're doing way better than you in school. What are you doing with your life? Fuck martial arts. Well, you think you can be a Rambo? Anybody can be a Rambo. Take a real man to be able to. It's like, whoa, dude, you got some fucking. I need to get the fuck away from you. Otherwise, you could destroy me. I brought you into the sport. I can take you out. Yeah, I obviously, my suspicions were confirmed. But by now, my father, though, and he is still alive, he has always had the ability to right his wrongs. And that's the only thing he needs to know in his remaining years on life. It was he who dictated whether Alex Ansary had value or not. Well, now the smoke is cleared, and there's things that aren't going to be mentioned here. And I showed, right, my interest in books, the spiritual, the unseen forces, and even an element of respect for his own culture that I developed, or his land more so than culture. But there's beautiful elements of the culture that you'll never see. Right? You'll never see a documentary showing, well, why was Afghanistan stable for a number of years? Why were women running around without burqas in an Islamic country? How could this be? And then after the United States intervened, then everything started to tumble. Then people would also be reading more about Iraqi prostitutes and porno being shot in Iraqi. Like, bring out the freedom. Bring out the fuck bets and get out the cameras. It's like the idea of freedom for women, whether it's getting better or worse, seems pretty perverted from the modern American Western mind. Especially when you know how much BDSM porn comes out of this country. Not Afghanistan, not Iraq. Doesn't mean that they don't have their own. It means, like, when you're constantly being told, well, these are the people, ultimately, they're holding the whole world back from the women becoming full goddesses or something. They don't necessarily say that, but they have this type of white savior thing going on, that they're somehow doing something for Afghan women. It's true. It's true. Get real. Understand NPR. NPR plays on the white leftist saviorship archetype, hero. And when you actually look at the greater reality, before all this Western intervention, the women were safer. The women were freer. And it's the responsibility of Afghan Americans to tell the story about the pre-Soviet occupation. Because those that don't, that have had the freedom of life, they disappoint me. They disgust me, right? Even because the truth is, even if they're afraid of persecution for telling the truth, there's always a way in which someone can do it anonymously. People go about their ways as white nationalists, as anonymous people, because they don't want repercussions. Other people in our culture that are good choose anonymous handles because they don't want repercussion for their good deeds. So why aren't there other people from those lands that are speaking truth in the English language? Why would I feel so alone? Why would so many Americans walk over me or walk around me instead of appreciate the uniqueness of me and how I'm choosing to use whatever gifts I may have in forecasting what I think is coming with this war with the East? I think future generations will understand my life a little bit better with less judgment than the people that were alive today. And that's less of a blame to you and more just an acknowledgement that we are in the dark ages vibrationally. That somehow, some way, there is less information available to souls only at a certain level. To where for a time it could seem like those of us that seem to have a higher level of perception, it could seem that energetically we are here to be electrocuted energetically and or tortured. Some people identify with the term targeted individual. I take it to a whole nother level, the point where even messing around those terms will just bring in odd individuals and limited belief systems that lead towards thinking the government is the only ones behind this, but yet they're not able to talk about the targeting of millions of people that are literally removed off the face of the earth forever. I think it's actually not good energy to get involved with ufologists and targeted individuals and people that just talk about themselves. You can really pick up on the negative energies and the demons attacking those people by osmosis. And then when you witness it, those people don't even acknowledge those possibilities. That's when it gets scary. That's when it personally gets scary. When you see that they don't even acknowledge in their monologues about targeted individuals how their demons or their whatever targeters could spread the program, or even how their own fearful thoughts. And see, I've told you this for many, many years, that Slender Man's coming to mind, by the way. And so through the internet, some girls got into Slender Man, and then these girls got into killing other girls. Who's calling for their deportation, right? Who's saying it was a religion? Some religion of peace. It's like all over the news, there are all these stories of serial killers and basically people that are white within our society going on vampire killing sprees. No one says, see, religion of peace. They're humans who are imperfect, and it's capable to possess them on Earth more so during certain periods than others, including other humans. And what the dark forces do is they seize control of the media and algorithms, social media and mainstream, and they create the false truth from the top of the pyramid as to why these things are taking place. And there could be years without Muslim attacks on U.S. soil. You should learn from the last few years. And then all of a sudden, a wave of events could happen in the future. And then boom, there could be calls for concentration camps. And it could be so psychotic that non-Muslims, American-born with strange-sounding names, could face persecution. And if not a camp, maybe they can face other persecution because of their appearance and or their name and or their ideas. Or, oh, I don't know, as if I know what that's like, a fusion of all. Because when you sprinkle on YouTube activism, when you sprinkle on like pushing back, when you sprinkle on a spirit like the spirit of Alex Ansary on top of, then you'll know what it's like to be isolated. Then you'll know what it's like to truly feel cold. Well, false, fallen elements of the world think that we're toasty warm, living inside a mansion, being supported by the system, being loved by the women of today's day and age. We'll take this moment for the next 10 seconds. For those women that do support on Patreon, I don't all have your names memorized. I know that you're there in spirit, and I know that you allow me, Alex Ansary, to speak my truth. And I want to thank those of you that haven't thrown me under the bus, because you know that I appreciate the good women of this world and of the cosmos, the goddess. And you know what I truly speak of. And that there's a misogyny. And that's because you're at a high enough level at the moment. And just because people may drop off in the future, I understand times may be hard. I also encourage those of you that do have the financial means to check out the links down below and understand, and I mention this only once in a while and sometimes more than others, that I live off less than a few hundred a month, maybe 300 to 400. There's a guy named Jared, maybe a few others. They hear some videos, they may donate $5 per video, or when they like something in particular, but there's not a ton of that type of support. There are some people, though, that will respond, right? And it'll be like that synchronicity, and it'll all be like within 24 hours, $5, 10, 20, maybe a 50 once in a while. Sometimes people donate a few hundred, but it's not super, super common. I'm not like reeling in the thousands per month. And that's the truth. Sometimes some months are better than others. And so the reason I mention that is I want to strongly increase support on the Patreon side and also on the members only. Because on the members only, I'm going to be focusing more so in the future on specific case studies with the paranormal. I think that we risk, I feel like I need to turn the heater on. We risk a certain amount of energy lossage and psychic attack and interference by getting into certain things regarding the paranormal on YouTube. And there's a reason why I believe that, but I can't necessarily prove it to you. But this is basically a paranormal interference or interface. The YouTube algorithm almost seems to be serving an archonic entity, or it almost seems to be one. I'm not saying that it is. That's kind of ridiculous to even suggest that. I understand. I know there are things like computer programming and software engineers. Those people can be programmed, though, by darker forces. And I think that the real YouTube isn't really being led by a lot of minorities, even if you have a guy that looks like he's from East India, who seems to be the front for Google, right? I've done a lot of jokes recently. Thank you. Come again. But, I am thinking about the Indian stereotype, by the way, from The Simpsons, and how for a lot of people, they're seething, thinking that people are replacing them. And I see how the media, I see how politics, take a look. I guess we have a Muslim that's been elected to the Democrat side. This feeds into the Infowars psychosis and the Charlottesville mentality with the torches. You will not replace us. Jews will not replace us. That's what was said. I don't agree with those statements. And the algorithm should be smart enough to hear me say that and not think that I'm with them. The algorithm should already have it built in to go, we also heard he said he wasn't with them. We have it built in to recognize when they're being critical. But if AI and the algorithm doesn't even have it built in to recognize when someone's critical of those things, then the algorithm is serving those things. And when you have people that are faced with the truth, that they can start a new YouTube account and start surfing around, they can see for themselves that YouTube is going to start recommending to them Nibiru, Donald Trump this, Q. I still see that I'm being recommended on a YouTube channel that leans towards... And people really have the gall to go, why don't you get involved in this movement, that movement? People are at a very low level of intelligence right now that they don't even know what I stand for. They don't know what I mean when I talk about we're living during a massive time of cycles. And the things that we're seeing in these deceptions are indicative of other things. And then I start to talk about those subcategories. They write me off as crazy. They disrespect me or insult me in some way. And they prance off. And then people act like, right, I'm the one that's spent when I'm actually keeping my distance from people that are part of a collective that are showing harmful, hateful, and cruel behavior at a more incremental rate since the 2014-15 time period. Honestly, most of my life, I've experienced that cold wall. It's only been like these periods in which, it's like, having a massive snowstorm, and then periods in which the light comes through, or a light comes through the window. And all of a sudden it's powering up us with vitamin D, or powering up our solar panels, and then everything is on. And there's periods in which I experienced that in Portland. It's a combination of celestial energies plus the time period, like coming up to 2012 was the rise. There's also a period in which, and I don't want to necessarily sound so critical of my years dating women in Portland. It wasn't all bad. It just taught me a lot. I'm actually lucky to still have my health. And I never overdid it. Never overdid it. There's plenty of times in which certain people I didn't want to get involved with, certain things I didn't want to do. So my story is more about like learning what people are really into in today's day and age. How it kind of broke my heart. And now I've actually talked about it on YouTube, and those people that are purportedly more conscious than that have had all the time in the world to tell me that they're not like the rest. That they're not like the rest. That they're not like the rest. See, there's a purpose why I come back to some things. More married women that have interacted with me. Not all bad, but how that is an imbalance. That is an imbalance when healthy single women that don't have children or men in their lives, other men in their lives. So there's been a lack of that. That is a sign of an energetic imbalance in our world. That also means, though, to support some or to recognize some of those women, there's a reason why some women are married and they're no longer single. Maybe there was something about them, right, that man seized upon. Like, oh, I'm not going to let this one get away. So there's nothing wrong with people that reach out. It's that as long as I continue to be in this body, I will also highlight the energetic imbalance. And that there are people that will come, right, and straight up literally invite adultery or other things. And people need to be exposed, right, to the experiences that people like me have experienced. And they need to develop the humanity of empathy to go, oh, yes, now I understand why he's careful. Now I understand. Because there are other people out there that have agendas. Now, there is an agenda, I believe, because of the experience that I had in 2007 with someone in Portland. If someone is on the path of speaking truth, there is such a thing as sexual immorality, right? And it can happen when someone says, hey, me and my husband, we're getting a separation right now. Do you want to hook up? He said he's cool with it. Or something like that. What if there is something fundamentally built into the matrix to where good luck, or bad luck rather, bad luck, can befall a person who accepts the invitation, if you will, to eat of the forbidden fruit? I don't want to necessarily make this a biblical Garden of Eden comparison, but there are things that are almost like that. Like here, eat of this poisonous thing. Want to get down on it? No, you haven't really had much in your life along these lines. Here it is. And it's flaming hot. You sure you don't want it? So there's certain things that can happen that all of a sudden after that connection with that person, a sea of unfortunate events can happen. And there could be something in the bottom of the mind that goes, I wonder if that was bad luck. Or something can bring about bad energy. Or a negative spirit can be transferred from one person to another. Now, later on in life, this person appeared to be a little bit reptilian to me. Not only do we cease to become friends, her interests in life went dramatically. I think after me, she literally got in with, she was dating an actual soldier who literally killed Afghans. Now, that's what woke me up. Like, wait a minute. I had sex with a woman off and on repeatedly, after a separation, and there was some sort of a weird cordage that was established. And later, she developed a thing for an abusive Marine. Remember, we hung out in 2010, years after we were hanging out, and now she's with someone else, but supposedly she has the freedom to just see an old friend. This guy texted her 75 times. We didn't kiss. We didn't make out. She just hung out with me in my new apartment. Maybe we talked about, what we were up to. But that person that texted. I'm like, whoa. And I think he even said, yeah, you have to unfriend that person on Facebook too. So I'm thinking, wow, after everything, the years and years of watching my program and everything, and then to see that person go to the dark side, like I've had these experiences. So that was a female. I also feel like I've had these experiences with men that say that they were fans of my work in the past, but later became white nationalists. And now we're on the path of the Tucker Carlson, white genocide hysteria. Yet somehow they say that they were fans in the past or are. Wow. I wouldn't call that a fan. I'd call that a viewer. They're taking information, but why? Obviously, I wasn't able to turn them away from the dark force. So are they applying the dark force to their viewing of this channel? Signs point to yes in some cases. And other forms of sabotage, even if they're not aware of the sabotage and interference that they've brought. That's sabotage and interference. Those fundamental belief systems of white nationalism, illusions of separation, are not compatible with anything OTBTV has ever done in its history. In its history. Day one, the first episode was about 911 and was about the Afghan people being set up for 911 for a slaughter. That was the first OTBTV. That's where I came from. Hey, here we are now, 14, 15 years later. And the only person of the heritage within the truth movement that's of a bloodline that's being bombed back to the Stone Age, and this is true, happens to live isolated without any actual provable friends. Bill Gorman lives hours away. He's a decent guy. We're also a little bit different. He knows that. I know that. I know that. He knows that. You know that. So it makes it very difficult for me to even be alive in human form. Being alive, let's keep segueing. being alive in human form does not feel like it's my natural form. Is there a sense of guilt? Do I wonder if I even played a role in the downfall? Oh, I play with all different types of ancient history ideas or soul memory, ancient soul theories, as well as the idea that maybe some of us split like broken glass into the earth from something larger. And on earth, we have knowledge and information and spiritual teachings that can help lift us up beyond the limitations of the earth, even like to go back home to the sun, if in fact our solar energy, our soul, going back to the solar, as we of course focus on that light. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about meditation, just a few minutes each time. Think about that solar ball of light within you. And it is believed that we have our own sun in some religions, right here. And maybe you felt certain situations and in certain areas and in certain times, almost like that type of draw on your solar plex that may not feel good. Maybe it's because some sort of disincarnate energy of a certain area wants to pull on your solar plex or your soul, or to harvest your energy, your soul essence. You start to see a pattern here? Yesterday I said, practice grounding to the center of the earth. You want more of a deeper guided meditation, check out like the many, many options that are out there. I wouldn't get too, unless you feel like you really, really need it. Like you could be like someone who has some serious mental health problems and you just can't do some things on your own. So you like need someone to guide your meditation, or you may need it for a few years. But ultimately, you don't see the Tibetan Zen masters, listening to another person guide them into, that's very introductory. To a certain point of research and experiential practice, you don't need someone to be guiding you through the meditation. That's introductory. How you ground to the earth, you should already know how to do that in your head, how to get in your head, how to see that screen within your head. Also, the mind-heart connection, right? You should be of a mindset that there's many, many books out there that are available to you for you to start learning. It's not about one type of meditation. You may start with Vipassana or holding your breath, or maybe a specific type of yoga meditation. You may also be in some sort of very special place, and good luck to you if you are, where you've been told that people that involve breathing, I don't necessarily do that, but that other things that they're invoking demons. Wow. Do you say that about joggers? Because I don't know if you've noticed this. There are these people that are doing this and they're running. And I'm pretty sure that I haven't seen so-called Christians call them devil worshipers because they're breathing. I also heard a person that called himself a Muslim. He was a white Muslim, and he was talking down to me about what I've learned about meditation. There's so many times in which it is very indistinguishable if you were to take away the ethnicity and the specific words from an Orthodox Muslim and an Orthodox Christian in some cases. Sure, you're going to say there's going to be some things, but there's going to be the themes that come up over and over and over again. And the themes that come up, oh no, there's just our truth. Oh no, but God says, you'll notice like the logics and pathways of thought will feel more archonic when it's coming from most of these people. That's not to say that a spiritual Muslim or a spiritual Jew or a spiritual Christian, they may be able to show us their goodness. And I've had that experience in which, and it's in a tale of four angels, when I got out of a bad situation in 2013. And several members of several different faiths within a single day acted as a chain to allow me to get a ride to get out of a bad living situation. It led to me going to St. Louis, Missouri, staying with an old friend at the time. Jeff, if you're out there, try emailing me directly if you ever want to talk again. Forget the social media thing. If you're still a viewer, email, and then email some more. Because I am not living or swimming in the comment section. You will not reach me that way. You will not reach me that way. I am creating new ways of shielding, and knowing that we are dealing with unseen forces, I've seen evidence that they work through humans, that use elements of social media to distract and sap energy, create self-doubt, target self-esteem. They're not personally benefiting from those type of programs, but the entities of this world that would like me, one of the few humans that's not talking about these things, they would like me to be shamed to the point where I don't talk about these things, because there's a lot of knowledge that can help people. But in particular, of all the people, when we look at reality, it's white people. The majority of my audience are white Americans living in the United States and or Canada and the UK. And you're also the vast majority of people that support my work financially. And so when you hear me challenge white supremacy and what it is, you know you're not attacked because you understand that these things drop the soul down into the underworld. There's going to be people that come against me that say that's not how this is, that there is no afterlife. Everything is about how people are perceived and the skin tone in American cities and whether or not this destroys civilization or improves it, or whether or not it's a part of the conversation. See, the dominant conversations of today are demon speak. They are not of the light. And in knowing this, it sets one's free. Let me get back to that as we loop back to the free flow. Knowing how afraid that woman felt through my own empath in that larger town that I identified to be less right-wing, maybe more leftist, maybe more multicultural, but tons of California girl blondes. Tons. But it's not California dreaming, it's a California nightmare. They're afraid of the non-whites. They're terrified. I already got to experience that with Portland, but this other town, it's more hardcore. It's straight up hardcore. It's down the line racially who's working, who's not, who's afraid of who. That's fucked up, folks. That's fucked up. And somebody like me has to tell you, like some of you live in these worlds to where you're saying it's all brown and you're the only in white. And yet when I look at YouTube and certain things, I see a reverse reality of what they promote and in my travels. And it doesn't mean that you don't have your own challenges. It means that we face our own unique challenges. It's not one size fits all. It's not just this is the God, this is the devil. Right? If you're going to be watching outside the box TV, you got to acknowledge you're going to get an outside the box perspective on race relations or the origins of races or the value of humans. If you can't acknowledge it, you're going to get an outside the box perspective on everything, right? Unsubscribe. You can't show me a show on CNN or Free Speech TV or Democracy Now! that touches these topics. Trolls that aren't familiar with my content hear this and they think they're hearing CNN. And it's actually traumatizing to me, by the way, to see people act like they care about minorities when they're a part of the racism machine. And a lot of people can't say if they feel the same way about CNN. A lot of people don't believe the mainstream media has been setting up Muslims for a long, long time. Well, I do. And anyone that actually knows the history of CNN and CNN, 9/11 remembers, bomb Afghanistan. No, CNN is not partisan. CNN is a part of the machine. Americans have such a low level of intelligence overall. Alex Jones was created to kind of attract those that thought that they were trying to awaken themselves beyond the left-right paradigm, but really the spoon-fed them the left-right paradigm on steroids with a little bit of extra, bath salts added in. You're not going to be able to get close to God by going to a satanic sacrifice where they're drinking blood. I don't care how euphoric you think you feel during your first experience and how many crosses they may have brought out, and they may have been doing Jesus songs and going dancing with snakes and all that, but you literally have that reality now where people are drinking of the blood of the bomb child. This world would have me so freaked out that I would be okay with risking my life speaking the truth, because at this point, I'm not going to stop speaking the truth because of fear of consequences. I'm going to let it ride. What if everyone let it ride? What if all these so-called followers of Christ and religions actually chose to go with it as if they really believed what they said? What if those that label themselves Christians actually adopted Christian ideologies in the truest sense and how they related to people overseas especially millions of people that did nothing to you on 9/11, despite what you're told about them being Muslims, despite what you're told about them and their supposed agenda for you. What does the Supreme Being really think about some people supporting his creation being removed off the face of the earth? Do you think that he will favor that? And if people think that there's a deity that's going to favor their wickedness, to what deity do they pray? Do I feel that I, as a soul, am speaking to some people that are questioning their own hatred? I know so. I know that there are people out there that think that they are admitted haters that are actually disciples. But this will not become clear to them until the events begin. And I have to be okay with that. In setting myself free from the expectation of the other larger town being kinder, I open up my heart more to the town in which I found myself in. Rural conservative, I may be alone, right? But have I had an overall greater sense of peace here or across the mountain 70 miles away? It's here. Have I been scared living here? Yes. Have I seen the dark side of humanity on social media and went, oh shit, dude, I'm never hanging out with that dude? Yes. But has God also revealed himself to me as well? Yes. Does a sense of faith in the greater creator grow stronger when we survive certain levels of ashes? Because I talked about having to rise through the ashes of the late 90s, but I'm in my own right now. I'm trying to rise 2.0. And it's hard to say that because I know I'm capable of so much more. But sometimes here I feel so fucking stuck. I'm so off the ley line that I'm in the dark ages and I got to bring in my own light. Sometimes I feel like I'm trying to hold up the neighborhood. Folks, sometimes I'm outside. I can hear people screaming that are up the street because of the nightmare that they're living. And there are people that live in other realities that may not have the sensitivity or empathy for what I go through because they're living in a city. There's a Thai street restaurant down the street. There's some sort of the idea of having no community and being of a bloodline that's being removed off the planet or being blamed for 9/11. Many of you can't identify with that. Have you ever heard the phrase, I can't imagine that? I don't identify with the statement, I can't imagine that, because I can imagine much. One time I wrote in a letter to a friend, I can't imagine what you're going through because I can imagine what he's going through in his illness. Even if our society says it is polite to say, I can't imagine what you're going through. That's actually fucking inverted. That's rude. You can't imagine what I'm going through. You can't imagine what I'm going through. But you can imagine your own persecution. You can imagine your own pain. Oh, that's fucked up, man. This is like Retardo Planet, where it's like if we could just evolve beyond retardation, monkey fuck, where people just like fuck on top of the bones of the dying world. Like if we were able to just like maybe pop just a little bit above that, that maybe we can get to planet B. Right? Where the real chicks are at. Man, I can't wait to meet the real first hot conscious chicks. That's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. Like maybe like the first planet that I've been on for many, many years, to where a form of life coming out of myself would be appreciated and will have a fair shot. In this world, that's not going to happen. In this world, I'm not reproducing. In a world that doesn't even recognize what's happening to me, oh no, I wouldn't wish that on somebody else. That child would still be marked. We'd have to change its name for it to not be marked. But it would still bear the DNA. It'd still bear my DNA. Those that bear DNA like me, despite the things you're hearing from the white nationalists, what I see by 2100 is a far darker world. I don't mean skin tone. Unless we have a major interrupting event like the sun and a cascade of solar events. There could, of course, be an unfortunate event that comes from the sun that interrupts civilization, but we're not at the later stages of the Kali Yuga, which I haven't studied directly, but that knowledge was probably embedded within my own DNA strands. And so just being exposed to certain names, being exposed to certain charts, has an activating quality to it. I think for me, the gravitation towards the study of the sun is all I really need to do. And how when the sun starts acting more in this way, clearly demonstratively, we see more things happening in our world. We can adjust for those changes. And the sun's major activities that we're going to be seeing in the next couple of years are going to be dramatically changing everything. So I shouldn't try to hold up this system. What I want to say is we shouldn't be rushing to the next life, but we shouldn't be holding on for dear life within this one to this life. It's one chapter in a sea of experiences. Sure, there's a bit of fear of being reincarnated or recycled back into this world. Waking up like Neo screaming. Ah! But who's to say that if that is, because we may have to do a lot more work of self-mastery, like half my average lifespan's over. I'm not planning to live forever. So it's like I'm going to be 40 pretty soon, let's 50% mark on average, if I even make it that far. I don't know. But I know that some of the things that people are taught in this world isn't healthy. Like when people are taught to lie about their age, or when they show that to their children, that's not healthy. For people to be so stuck in the illusions of separation and to let that rub off on a child. There were elements of the illusions of separation that were straight up rubbed off to me by both sides. We've covered that now. So we talk about me healing and the origins of where the healing starts. It doesn't start with 911 or recent events on Facebook. It starts with the inception of birth. The healing has to go back to the beginning. And healing all of those experiences that seem to validate that my difference in this world put me at subhuman level. The world reinforced that years before 911 even happened, that there wasn't really a category for me. There's even a time period in which, because Muslims aren't really demonized before 911, that I was exposed to people saying derogatory things about Asians, Latinos, and people being very liberal with the N-word with regards to blacks or African Americans. And I always think that all these things were strange. Right? It was only after 911 that others were brought into the fold. And it wouldn't be in recent years that I would come to the awareness that within the hierarchy of values of races, that my current combination on a collective level, based on the perception, I am considered at the bottom of the hierarchy of races of the current humans that are walking the earth. You may not have known this. You may be brainwashed into thinking that I'm part of a preferred class. That argument that I'm part of a preferred class or Middle Eastern people, or that which you see, is actually rhetoric used to drop it. The overall stereotype that they have is child rapist, goat fucker. Even if someone's actually never left the United States, saying to someone, I've never left the United States, and saying to individuals that have never been a part of the Muslim religion, does not stop the white nationalism, white genocide hysteria, or that individual that's saying those things to be repelled by someone like me, even if we're not from a foreign land, even if we're not Muslim. When you reach that level of gnosis, that despite the fact one is not a foreigner and a Muslim, but still, and based on it, you deal with strangers walking like that don't know each other across the street, they're basing things based on what they can see with their eyes. They're basing things based on what they can see with their eyes. They don't know what someone's name is. They don't know what someone's religion is. They're basing things with their eyes. Now, some, as I said, are going to be responding to other powerful spiritual beings with fear. A lot of women have done that to me in this world without realizing they, as a white woman, may not be the only one that knows yoga or spirituality or the power of the deep breath. The only ones that do know my spiritual essence are the ones that watch me through 2D, also known as YouTube.com. There's no one in the physical world, despite what you think, where there are white women or white men that go, that dude, Alex Ansary, he's the shit. In the real world, there was a time in which maybe I knew people in Portland. That was a long time ago. I don't live in Portland. And it's very important to clarify a difference between comment section behavior and activity, which is actually very limited and small in of itself. There's some videos in which nobody commented or said, good job, Alex. Thanks for doing a 1-hour video about how the ancients viewed the sun. Instead, the flat earthers will come at me in waves, or people that almost seem to have the religion of hating those that speak about the sun. And in many cases, they will be louder than even those that purportedly support me on YouTube. They're part of the core 100 viewers, or now is it 150 or 200? Doesn't seem to be consistent. Then there'll be a bunch of other people that will see the keywords, right, but they won't hit sub. 600 people hear me talk about the EBT thing. You know, they're looking for information about EBT. No one's really responding to the idea of stocking up on bulk foods and going off grid, and responding to the gnosis of the solution. Nothing. Maybe a few people and a few people. And what would be difficult throughout my entirety on Earth in this body would be the intolerance of those at times that would be a part of my own audience that had not yet completely separated themselves from the matrix, the collective, to where when they heard me criticize the collective society, male, female, illusions of separation, they felt that they were personally being attacked. And then I would have to remind video after video, unless you harbor such deep illusions of separation programming, why would you be offended? You would actually already know what I'm talking about and probably agree and probably understand. You probably have the intelligence to be able to put yourself in my position and go, yeah, I can imagine how that can almost be a nightmare. I don't know how I can do that. There's something that's like a bug within the people of the society that has a block, kind of like there could be like a child block option for like a computer, to where the kids will say, hey, I don't want my kids to look at porn or InfoWars or InfoWhores, where you mix it together and Alex Jones screws Millie Weaver on camera and the baby comes out and it's literally Barbara Bush or some sort of little demon, little alien. But there are people that act like they've put the empathy block for some reason to me. And instead of go, whoa, that's all, now I realize I was born into a bloodline that is being bombed back to the Stone Age, and there is an implant there for me to not have safe passage while I'm in this body, or for a level of compassion to not come into this body while I'm in this form, knowing that they're not even counting the bodies of the people of my form. I know that I was somehow born into experience that I'm pretty sure that out of the 200 people that are watching this, or will, or 300, maybe 1 to 2 of you may know what that's like. Out of the entirety of the 38 years in which I've been alive, there are only 2 humans, 1 male, 1 female, neither of them conscious at all. But I was able to meet 2 that were a combination of the East and the West. One was Pakistani white, the other was, and I'm not even sure the type of white or ethnicity of European. And this guy was kind of like a big bodybuilder, kind of like looked like Lou Ferrigno. And so Afghan father, but white Afghan, and white mothers. He was totally white, looked totally like a white guy, but an Afghan father. I have an East Indian grandmother, so I'm marked with a darker tone, to where to a lot of people I could be a number of things that they can perceive to be their biological enemy. That's not an accidental birth for a soul to fall into. That's either a punishment, but I haven't been crucified yet, but the lifetime's still early. And that's why I don't discount the idea that I could be in danger at any point in time. But the reality is I try not to apply that too much to a certain time frame, although I think the most dangerous times to be alive are coming in and around 2025 and the ramp up. I'm concerned that there's going to be things that are done that the right wing will do to those that are called their enemy to provide the propaganda to the rest of the world that the United States has pretty much fallen into the dark ages and might as well have an intervention from Chinese and Russian forces. So it's all propaganda. And what they will do in the future won't be there to help us. And I've tried to explain to people, like, even if you see what the U.S. has done to Muslims and these countries, Don't then wish for the United States to fall. In a way, I've shown you that I have a heart. In a way that I've shown you I have love. And people will still hate me. People will still hate me. And I think that's why. I believe in my mind. That's why. It's because I'm showing you there's another perspective that you can walk down other than hatred. It's like that girl telling Neo, don't get out of the car. You've walked down that road. You know where that leads. You know where that leads. Having been rejected by all sides of this society, including Muslims, and again, if you're a Muslim that watches this program, thank you. You're part of the less than the 0.000, it's a very small percentage. Thank you to those of you that are different that may occasionally let me know that, because it's important that other people hear my message. And it's important that people that have been brainwashed by the system to be told that they've been replaced, that there are systems in place in reality to keep my message away from many minorities, to keep it in an echo chamber of those things that have been labeled right-wing, alt-right conspiracy theory. I'm in a box on YouTube. I've been placed in a box, whether you knew that or not, that will in a way segregate me from more of the spiritual communities on YouTube. I don't understand what you mean. There are ways in which channels on the sidebar will recommend that you go to other channels that YouTube says are in the same niche. YouTube's got its niche fucked up. Are you still with me? Can you hear me now? And so people that are into the Q, Donald Trump, fuck the Muslims, they're constantly being directed to my channel, but I don't know that I hear enough from people that aren't of that mindset. A lot of people run interference via emails. That doesn't mean all of you run interference via emails. It means that the majority do. The majority do. And the adults that I'm going to talk to, because I'm not going to talk to children, are going to be adults at a certain level of adult maturity that have empathy for my targeting and my experiences, and for it not to just be about them. And that's the narcissism that I can't take. I'm here to speak my truth and continue speaking my truth. And it at times is bumping against some other stuff that I'm like, whoa, hey, that's not what I'm saying. I'm going over here. You can listen to it, right? I invite all kinds of people to interact with my content. But there's tons of roads in which I'm not going to walk down, and ideas that I'm not going to personally co-sign myself. And there's things in which, unless I develop a certain level of personal discipline to not engage on social media, this thing has the ability to destroy me. Don't ever think that because you liked a video of mine that I'm some sort of Superman. Don't ever let the euphoria of what you got from this video distort your perception of the challenges that I face each and every minute and second of each and every day, of every week, of each and every month, of each and every year, of each and every decade that I am alive. And I don't know how many lifetimes I've been going through this. You want to talk about Groundhog Day as a microcosm for something way bigger? So what does Bill Murray do? Oh my God, I never said this before. Like Groundhog Day and Gnosis. I mean, I've mentioned it before. What does he start doing? He starts doing good deeds. He starts learning from his mistakes. He starts developing memory. Ooh, he starts developing memory, pattern recognition, patterns. You know, right around here, that guy's going to bump into her. But see, earlier he was manipulating so he can get the girl. And it wasn't becoming successful. He had to change up his tactics. But eventually he figured it out. Eventually he figured it out. And in one day did everything that he needed to do. And then when he woke up the next day, right? It wasn't that same song from I Got You, Babe. Do, 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 do. I got you, babe. Do, 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 do. I got you, babe. And that song would play every single day. The same song was playing. The same song was playing. Another metaphor. The same reality, vibrational frequency. Think they live. And he's in this world where the satellites have people under mind control, and you got to put on the sunglasses in order to see the others. What type of bullshit is that? It's the same song. It's the same old song and dance, my friend. And that's the great reality of it. Look at this card, by the way. I picked up for 50 cents. Yeah. Are you going to be one of the lucky individuals that's going to be receiving this in your P.O. box? Now, if there's any of you out there that want to do some volunteer work for me, it could be research. It could be something related to YouTube. It could be keyword research, right? But I don't have volunteers currently doing anything nor resharing videos, right? And I am going to continue to be a hard ass. I will appreciate the people that are there, right? But I'm never going to be like other people in the alternative media that act like there's a big team working behind me, or have people walking around filming me. And there's ways in which people act like they're wealthy and successful in order to draw that success energy to them. And there's principles to that in which I'm in agreement with, as long as it's always about being honest about what you stand for. You know, I missed the jacket, which I lost, which the A-man got me. My old friend got me that jacket that you saw me with on OTBTV. That old mentor friend of mine, he didn't get it for me for OTBTV. He got it for me for just success in life. But that was the OTBTV jacket. He was the one that bought the cape. Answery was the one that animated it. Right? Wasn't my path to be a wise guy, but it was my path to be a truther. So the jacket and that archetype of power and authority can be expressed in different ways, right? Maybe I'll get a jacket again in the future. I'm not necessarily anti-jacket. I'm just not into the tie. But there was a part of me that needed to be liberated from the jacket energy and the energy of Alex Ansary that had been infused into that jacket for so many years. So in 2015, 8 o'clock in the morning, by the way, folks, I think it's probably time to start uploading this. In the first couple of weeks, I was in Stevenson, Washington. My first couple of weeks of living without a home, under the canopy that said Brahma of that 1985 Toyota truck, which, by the way, I gave away for free, along with that teardrop camper when I left Oregon in 2015. But going back to 2014, right, I'm getting away from Portland because I want to get away from that grid energy and be somewhere more natural. And I hung the jacket that the A-man gave me on a tree, and I went to town. And I don't know whether I hung on a tree, actually, or I left it on the side of the... because I wanted it to not be too wrinkly. I lost it. And I went back looking for it. I can never find it. And even though I love that jacket, I feel like the universe removed that jacket so I could be free. Because I had to free myself from Portland, I had closure. It doesn't mean that we stop being friends with people forever. It means that, okay, I'm bringing closure to this part of my reality so I can, like, you know, have enough weight so I can fly now. So I can spread my wings and fly. And I needed that. And even those things, and I even said some harsh things on the air. I even said some people are dead to me. I said some things that were harsh and that were hardcore, but it was because I was going through, though, that experience of climbing up from the underworld. OTBTV 2.0, coming up from the ashes. Because literally, and I told you before, I was in some dark ages before starting my own TV show. Wasn't as bad as the others in Portland, but for a while there, substance abuse was the thing around that period, around 9/11. And the world seemed to be falling apart around the time of the Matrix movies and Lord of the Rings. Some of you remember the era of the late 90s. It was a sense of hopelessness. And then I felt a sense of the light. I saw the light in addicts and people in the post-2000s. Portland was transforming energetically. And in this case, I will be more allowing and loving to those of the hipster apocalypse without a sense of judgment. To those that in reality are the ones that replaced me. No, you replaced me, and I went on with my life and I went off the grid. No, I was replaced. You see these people that scream, you will not, but they're saying it's okay for me to be replaced, but they can't be replaced. Well, in some cases, they're not being replaced. They're just saying that shit at propaganda. I've been replaced. And I don't see racial supremacy or anger towards certain groups as a solution. But speaking one's truth, even if it has passion and vigor, that's what's missing in today's day and age. Maybe I should paint that upper area with some glow-in-the-dark material. What do you think about that? Maybe when my friend visits in April, Some sort of glow-in-the-dark material. Oh, that'd be so badass. Okay, we're doing it. But yeah, I'm going to wrap things up. I am going to take that negative experience from that other town and use it as healing. In the sense that in reality, despite how sad I am here, in the smaller town, the urban blight of the larger town and the heartbreak of the larger town a little bit further, and what's happening in Denver, it's so sad to see the consciousness of mainline Colorado people on the left. It's dirty. There's no difference to me between the left and the right. There are people that literally are programmed to act a certain way when they see me or come across my content. It's automatic, and it's a result of this fallen world. There are very few people that are going to be able to convince me of any logic against that. And the opposition that I'm facing that some people don't want to hear actually makes me stronger. Some people need to understand that there's a place where this power of the voice comes from, where the prana comes from, when the prana is activated. And it's whoosh, that's not random. That portal of energy that I'm throwing at you comes from the pain. It comes from the bleeding heart, the heart that feels like it's been wounded by the spear of life. I speak in free flow and very quickly because I want these unscripted ideas to come through. Some of you may hear this and go, this is a guy that I'll be willing to donate to. Sign up on Patreon. You may want to support via PayPal. You may be somebody in the four corners of Colorado. You may be someone else in Colorado. You may be someone that is generally above the illusions of separation, and you find my content. Today is not that day. Yesterday was not that day. A couple years from now could be something different. So keep these things in mind that there are different seasons. Sometimes it's hot. Sometimes it's cold. Sometimes it's spring. Sometimes it's fall. And where we are in the season is something that relates to how we're feeling and whether we're getting enough sun and whether we're getting enough light and whether or not we're protecting ourselves during certain periods from having our own solar light leached or drained, right? By some of the energies and influence of this world. If you're stuck in the illusions of separation, that can include, right, only getting your truth from certain people. So thinking that one person has the truth, that you've arrived at the truth, that you found your prophet, illusions of separation. You should have the ability, although I don't write every day, but you should have the ability or interest in whatever you believe or are saying to be able to write that out in a journal and to know like how you reached your own thoughts and how you came to certain conclusions. So even if you come across someone else that's also talking about the same things, you should be able to easily differentiate. So let's say there's someone talking about the archons, as I said, and some people aren't at a level of intelligence that they can differentiate. They just hear archons, they think we're on the same side. They don't realize that some people use the buzzwords and talk about aliens and the battle of good and evil. They can't speak about the evil that the archons are doing to the people of this world. Okay, because the archons aren't just manipulating the world and orchestrating these wars as they try to remake the world in its image. That's why I'm a little suspicious about these texts that say about we were made in God's image. We were made in certain images of those that made us. And on a planet where even Chinese scientists can clone, I mean, come on, folks. Those of you that have been super allergic to Gnostic teachings, super allergic to just a common sense, how do we know that that which made us is actually the true God? Now that you can actually see the communist Chinese be able to edit genes, how much longer are people going to hold up the Old Testament biblical worldview of what is God and what is not God? So anyway, I'm going to be heading out later, getting some exercise, attempting to meditate by the river, maybe attempting to write. It's been weeks since I've written. One of the things that I am thinking of doing, by the way, go ahead and click those links down below. And if you want to donate cash, by the way, there are very few people that do this, even though it says that down there. But if you just have cash, Western Union or MONEYGRAM, if you want to donate that way, and it's rare when it does happen. Somebody sent $30 not too long ago or a couple months ago from California or LA. And that was very much appreciated because all of that at that time went to fuel. By the way, there's a propane shortage in the state of Colorado. So I really wish me luck finding some help getting a decent fireplace and a friend in Colorado to help me install that fireplace. And hopefully for less than $500. At some point in this year of 2019, I need to get that done. I need to get that done. That way I can be off of the kit of propane, because in a major disaster, there would be a lack of propane and other supplies. Keep in mind that I live in an area to where there would be way less of a certain type of community that some of you may have. And then, of course, maybe some people may snap out of their Dark Ages mentality if the you-know-what were to hit the fan, but I'm also concerned that some people might be a little bit more relaxed about just straight-up murder. With all the rhetoric that's building up right now within this nation, if someone were to pull the plug and people were to feel like, they can do whatever they want, it almost feels like the next couple of years, or at some point in the future, there could be some sort of a American Holocaust. And that could be something that transcends just one ethnicity, right? So there could just be like an American nightmare. You're already seeing white people fight white people, right? And saying things about other white people that if they heard a minority say those same things, they would call them racist. But because those people on the left and the right are white, they're saying things about their counterparts that are incredibly derogatory, but they're not racist because they're being political. Okay? That's more evidence of hypocrisy and the fallen world. So when you study meditation and you study the various spiritual teachings around the world, you're not led into this, you're either with Trump or you're with Clinton. That's why those of you that are super political but are reading spiritual texts, showing these spiritual texts in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, you're either with Trump or you're with Soros. You can't. So for those of you that are alive today, I need to ask you, and you answer the question yourself. What are you? Are you more of a political person that's like supporting one president or another? Or are you on the path of trying to truly understand immortality? If you are on that path, where is there room for Trump or Clinton or the next election? Just find a way to answer that. Find a way when you start understanding spiritual texts or talking about invaders. Find a way to understand where the invasion is coming from. The invader thing. Understand this is about human consciousness being invaded. There could be invasions at the southern side of the border because of major things that are going on in countries, but the ultimate invasion isn't humans moving from one place to another, in some cases peacefully. In some cases it's violent. But there are actual invasions with actual militaries, right, that actually are violent, that the people that are concerned about invasions aren't talking about, right? So there are things that talk about, the Hermetic vision and other things and prophecies about Egypt being invaded. But Egypt, or the ancient word was Chem, it was bastardized and called Egypt by the Greeks. So it's not the original name of the ancient world. But Chem was meant to describe the ancient world as a whole, maybe even the larger fallen world. So the idea of the invasion, which we're going through, we're wrapping things up here, is real. They inverted it by making it about race and skin tone and birth rates. That's the devil of this world and its programming. That's how you recognize it. That's the energy signature. They're making it about race. The invasion of human consciousness is the invasion. The alien invasion is real. The idea of being invaded by these forces is real, and it's already taking place, but it's spiritual. The devil's biggest trick is convincing us that he doesn't exist. And for a lot of people that think that they're Christians, but don't know the first thing about applying the teachings of Christ to the real world, and not just using the cross as a protective sigil. Because a lot of people, even though they diss on magic, they're engaged in magic. By, oh, I'm gonna hold up the cross. And we're taught this, hold up the cross of the vampire. Well, in this fallen world, a lot of people run around with crosses as a protective and hold on to, well, just in Jesus, and I convince my sins, but I can still do these things. The devil's biggest trick, the Archon's biggest trick, is creating false religions and false ways of saving yourself and creating false enemies to where people that are followers of many of these religions, including Islam, will attack, in some cases, people that are of their belief system in their regions if they are of the power structure. Say, we are the power structure. God says this. Therefore, you guys are of Shaitan or of the devil. And the Christians have their own versions and what they do to and say about the Gnostics. Same kind of mentality. In a way, those critics of the Gnostics are a lot like radical Muslims. When you actually look at it for what it is, take away the appearance, take away the language, and look at the energy, signature, and actions, and you have the same thing. These are things I'd like you to think about. Also, if people are so critical of the Islamic world, right, where they separate the men and the women, why do American cities feel so Islamic? No, I'm not talking about skin tone. I'm talking about like the way that women look down at the ground in fear, that type of separation, the way we've been divided. That's like the dark side of Islam. We go to some teachings and you have like the men over here and the women over here. No, there should be like more communion and communication about our light. There shouldn't be like this division. And the modern Americult seems to have taken the division of the man and woman of Islam, or the fallen world of Islam, right? And they've brought it into our world now to where there's a sense of guilt, which is fake guilt, shouldn't be there. But if we look at a woman with a sense of, I like her glow, why should I feel guilty by looking at her? Or to feel afraid that she thinks that I'm sizing her up for attack? Does this feel like a more superior culture that's evolved beyond certain barbaric programming? It would only feel more evolved if there weren't never-ending wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. I need to conclude on this note. If we were in a different reality with no 911 staged event, it would be a very different analysis. It would be a very different analysis of the conflicts in the Middle East were entirely organic, or even entirely organic between the United States and Palestine, which it's not, because Israel gets support from the United States to do what it's doing, so that's not organic either. That's all propped up, alien programming. So somebody can start literally with 911 like I did, or other things, find their way to Sauron's tower. I'm not saying it's a spiritual experience directly, but it is when you see how evil it is. Then you return to the whole of the earth down on below off the tower, and the earth becomes more of an ally against those dark forces that may be on the earth with us, but they're not of the earth. Okay, right there, I'm gonna pause things. It was very enjoyable and liberating to be able to share so many dynamics of this. There's a lot of people that are stuck in the illusions of separation and a very limited analysis on world affairs. So I watch very little content, period, bar none. I feel like very out of place being alive today on your planet, speaking of things that I don't hear others speak of, in a bloodline that I believe is being eradicated off the planet. It feels like I'm the alien. I'm not going to feel guilty about sharing with you elements of my soul. Some of you over time will appreciate that. Some of you, out of the biological impulse, cannot appreciate that and may later be a threat. Just because I'm speaking my truth, I don't really know. I think that's between you and the Creator, or me and the Creator. But I put in the Creator's hands to be that ultimate barrier. Not a bazooka, not a gang, not a political party. I ride alone, but I don't ride dirty. I ride with the Almighty.